Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire and the SBN Small Business Network podcast. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we are joined by a very special guest. He is a retired teacher and author, Mr. Tommy Kilpatrick. How you doing today, Tommy?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me come on your show.
Hey, not a problem. I'm definitely excited to dive in some of your story and background here. So, number one question the audience probably wondered, who is Tommy Kilpatrick?
That's a good question. Well, I was born and raised in California, and I thought I'd never leave. And I ended up becoming a commercial diver at 15. I was working in Dana Point, all the way down to San Diego. And then years later, I became a commercial diver and worked in the oil field of the Gulf of America. And then in 82, the oil glut happened and I got laid off. So I went back to California. I worked on tankers and super tankers. I drove a hydraulic sweeper that knocked the barnacles off the boat. And then I got married and got serious and wrote a book. And in about 2004, I was given an infomercial contract. So I thought I had it made. They were promised me about $100,000 a month. And so I was on the radio for about 6 months, and I used my credit cards to live on. And then what happened is one of the talents, he got in trouble with the FTC about his book, and he made false claims. So my contract was canceled, and I was left with $85,000 of credit card debt. So that's a quick.
Man, you gave us a lot to unpack there. Like, first thing, what led you to write your book?
Well, I'm here in the Philippines, and I'm teaching farmers how to build dome houses and structures with bamboo, so it's free housing. I'm teaching how to do vertical gardening, so no more bending over like we've done for 10,000 years. And I want to open up self-managed medical care clinics for the community here. And to finance that and to do that, I wrote a book about debt, which I have a lot of experience with, and how to get out of it in one sense, but also how to close your free checking account. So it's a kind of strange story, but yeah, that's so the money that I make from this is going to go to what I'm doing here. Because I'm retired, I have what I need. I don't want anything. So it's just something fun to do here in the Philippines and give back to the people who have given to me so much love and mercy. That's what Rabbi Jesus of Nazareth taught was love, which means in Hebrew, I give, and mercy means extreme kindness. So that's what I have been receiving from them. And so the least I can do is give back to them. So that's why I wrote the book.
Awesome. So you said you started doing infomercials because they saw that you wrote a book. Yes. Can you kind of tell us about doing the infomercials and everything?
Oh yeah, that's let's see. I wrote a book on health and healing, and it got to be so popular that I was contacted by a infomercial company. And back then in 2004, that was the rage. And if you kind of think about it, there's a guy on YouTube, Myron Golden, and he did a video on it's easier now to become wealthy than any other time in history. And he goes through the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, the distribution revolution, and that was in the 50s, and then the computer revolution of the 70s. But then in 2000, we had this information revolution, and that's when it really took off. So if you were involved in Google or something like that, or with that infomercial deal, you made a lot of money faster and easier then. So I was in that kind of timing, and so that's where the infomercials were very popular then, and you could buy one, and I got almost scammed. Luckily, I read in the newspaper that the day before, I read the Sunday paper, and there was an article about this company in Palm Springs that was a scam, scamming people out of their money for doing infomercials. So I saved about $30,000. I had the money all ready to go to pay for it. But yeah, so it's good and bad. Some people made a lot of money, and most people watched money being made.
Yeah. So you touched on how you got fired from that infomercial from that company, and you use your credit cards to finance everything so you got paid. What was your mindset like after you lost your job and you were $85,000 in debt?
Depression, definitely depression. And it took about a month of how am I going to get out of this? I'm going to get sued. Like everybody knows that. If you don't pay, you get sued. And so one morning I woke up, I think about my dad, he was a CPA, and I was in school to be a certified public accountant, but I never got the credential. I can do the work, but I never got the credential. And I realized that the bank does not have an invoice. And from my first job as a accountant, I have this experience that most people don't have. The CFO was a CPA. He came up to me and pointed a finger in my face and said, "If you pay for my statement, I'm going to fire you." And that has stuck in my head very well. So he explained that sometimes the company owners are going to make a deal and they don't owe anything. We could have sent the check last week and it's crossing the mail, and you only pay from an invoice. And see it over here in the corner? That's a department head. So only if the department head approves this invoice are you to pay from it. And so that's what I found. I kind of realized that, wait a second, the bank doesn't have an invoice. And then I got to thinking about my classes in accounting, and I came across this book, required reading, was Modern Money Mechanics. And on page 6, it says right there, and don't believe anything I have to say today. be a doubting Thomas like myself. And in the show notes, I'll be some links so you can look it up yourself. And I want you to send this podcast to your CPA or anyone who's had one class of accounting, and they'll tell you I'm exactly 100% correct. So with that being said, I then realized the bank had never issued a loan, because in Modern Money Mechanics on page 6, it says what banks do is they accept your promissory note and they write numbers in your free checking account. So that's what they do. You have to sign a piece of paper promising to pay the bank back. Now they have a legal way of getting you into debt. Then they write numbers, and the banks can write any numbers they want in your free checking account. And that's what causes inflation, but that's so it's a little bit of a quick story of what happened to me.
Huh. So how did you exactly become debt free and learn what banks don't want us to know?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, I want to explain to you that there are true credit cards. So this is not a scheme to get out of debt. So when I first said it in the beginning, to get out of debt, it's not really that, because there is a true credit card. And if you go to, let's say, a tire store and you want tires, but you don't have the money, they'll say, "Hey, Ryan, why don't you apply for the in-store credit card and see if you are approved?" Well, you do, you're approved, and you drive away with tires on your car and you didn't pay for them, right? You didn't pay for them. You promised to pay them later. But it wasn't only a loan, it was a credit card. So what happened is that you're going to get a statement at the end of the month, which is true. And it says you have an outstanding unpaid invoice, which is true. So if you go into court and say, "I don't owe it," you're crazy. There is an invoice, okay, that shows the date, the tires, the taxes, the labor, anything and everything, terms and conditions is all there on the invoice. So you have to pay that. This is not the way to get out of it. So how do you know if Walmart or, let's say, Amazon or some department store is a true credit card? Look on the back. On the back, if it says issued by Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of London, Bank of Tokyo, Bank of India, it's a phony card. It's not a true credit card because they were never a merchant. They do not have an invoice. So that's my main argument, is they don't have a debt. You don't have a debt with them.
Huh.
So that's a true credit card, and you have to pay those.
So what you're saying is the ones issued by banks you can kind of get out of, and it's more what of a promissory note?
Well, law is language and language is law. So if you are saying words that the criminal is using, then you say getting out of a debt. See, you're immoral. You're not doing the right thing. But you see, if you use the truthful words, and that's what I'm trying to get through to your audience today, is, well, let's just start with a question. Is it possible for you, your audience, and me too, to have been lied to, indoctrinated, and brainwashed? Is it possible? What do you think, Ryan?
It's very
Of
possible.
course, very possible. Okay, so a lie is a lie, but when it's told generational, it becomes indoctrination. So you were brought up to believe this false thing that the credit card from a bank is a credit card, and that your parents told you that, your grandparents told you that, the school told you that, the whole media tells you that, everyone tells you that. So if you don't question it, then you have been brainwashed. Okay. I don't do that to insult your audience or insult myself, but if you don't question, so all I'm asking you and your audience to do is add one word: alleged. We watch television and we see a bank robber going into a bank, and we always say alleged. So that's all I want you to do is say alleged credit card debt. That puts the burden on the bank to prove that they have an invoice. If they don't have an invoice, they don't have a debt. They never could have issued a credit card. However, a merchant, someone who does a service for you and gives you that chance to pay it back, that could be a credit card if they issue such a thing. And so you owe that. That's a true debt. So if they have an invoice, pay it. You owe it. You're legally, morally obligated to pay it. But you don't pay from a scammer, someone who is defrauding you. So I have come across the worldwide banking are doing a fraud, and all the people from that bank issued alleged credit card.
So how do they give you money then out of that? Can you explain how that kind of works?
Yeah, it's a very good
Off the
question.
alleged credit card?
Right. So here's the thing. So if you keep saying credit card, then you're lost. You'll lose your argument. So now we agree that the bank does not have an invoice. They're not a merchant. They never could issue a credit card. So what are they doing? Well, what banks do is they're involved in loans. So if you have no money and you want money, you go into a bank, sometimes without a gun. Okay. So you go to a bank and you fill out fill an application for a loan. So let me ask you a question, Ryan. If you apply for a loan and the bank turns you down, do you still get the loan?
No.
Well, do
No.
you get the loan?
No.
No, of course not. Of course not. You don't get the loan. So you apply and you do get approved, which is only a request. Application means to request. Then you go to the bank and you fill out loan documents. Okay. Remember all those loan documents you have to fill out? You have to prove that you have an income. Because how are you going to prove to the bank that you are going to be able to pay this back? So if the bank is brought into court, the judges say they're giving loans out to people who can't pay it back. That's predatory. So you see, the bank has to have some evidence that you can pay this back. The other one they have is collateral. So you put your home up, your car, or if you go for a personal loan, you put your yacht up for it. Well, then they can legally take that away from you, sell it. And if they come up short, well, too bad for them. But if they come up long, meaning they have more money than the debt, they have to pay that back to you. They don't get to confiscate your property and keep it. They can only have to pay off their loan part and give you the rest of the money that back. So that's what banks do. So what happens is that they want customers. And what they do is they have inducements, they have promotions, and they had, years ago, they used to buy toasters and wall clocks. And when you came in, they would give you that to get you to sign up for an account. Okay. In the newspaper I saw, it said, come into our bank and deposit $25 and we'll match it in 90 days. So what did I do? I took my $25, put it into my savings account, waited 91 days, went into the bank and took out $50. 25 was my dollars, 25 was the bank's dollars, right? And I closed the account. Now, was that illegal, what I did?
No.
No. Was that immoral?
No.
No. The bank said do this, and I did it. Okay, so that's going to be a question comes up at the end. So we're going to have to ask ourselves, is it immoral what we're doing? Okay, so that's a very good question to see later on. So what happened is that you are given then back to the argument too, is that you have to have a credit report, and your credit score determines your interest rate. But the last thing you do is you sign a promissory note. That has to be done by federal banking regulations, because this is how the banks make inflation. So take a look at this. Look up 1776 to present inflation rate, and you'll see in the United States it was very flat. All of a sudden, 1933, straight up and up and up. It's crazy, because I believe the Federal Reserve, created the Depression. And it's well known that they raised the interest rates and choked off the economy, but no one ever asked a little bit further. What was the reason? What the end result was, banks all around the country went out of business and they got consolidated under the Federal Reserve. So in the beginning, the Federal Reserve was very weak. It was only after the Depression did they have a lot of their competition out of business, and they absorbed a lot of other banks. And that's what they keep doing. They keep absorbing more and more banks. Banks become bigger and bigger by absorbing smaller banks. And they also become bigger by confiscating your property. That's how they do that. So what happened in the 30s is that they started this fractional banking system. And what that means is they accept a promissory note and they write numbers. They can write any numbers they want into your free checking account, and all of a sudden you've got money. And that is a cause of inflation. So there was no inflation for 150 years, but then all of a sudden we have inflation. That's when they write these numbers, any numbers they want, into the checking account. Now you can use it. They didn't take the money out of the economy. They didn't remove that to put it in. Like a loan, would you take someone's depositor's money and give it to somebody else? So in my show notes, it explains there that the first thing is the banks do not loan out their money. And in the second link, it makes mocking. The Federal Reserve mocks us. It said, of course we don't take depositors' money and then loan it to somebody else. There'll be enough money to do that. So that's what they're doing is they have to accept a promissory note to write the numbers in your free checking account. So there is no loan from the bank. So
Yeah. That's kind of interesting then. So what they're pretty much doing is what you're saying is the alleged credit cards are just like a form of like a checking account.
you have to count. And that's what accountants do is we count. And we have an count. Means one or single counting. So the bank has to count your numbers. So think about this. You applied for a credit card, or maybe you didn't apply and it arrived in the mail. That was what I call a gift card. So if someone gives you something, it's called a gift card. So why would the bank give you $500 gift card? Well, that's the same thing they gave you as a wall clock or a toaster, or that may match my money. And in the show links, there's a guy, number 4 link, is on YouTube. He promotes this. Go to a bank that's offering this deal, take the money, fulfill the agreement, take the money out and close the account. He's made $361. That's the exact same thing with a $500 credit card. Not a credit card, it's a $500 gift card to get you to be a customer. Okay, so what did you do, Ryan, if you got something in the mail and said you're pre-approved, didn't even apply for it, didn't even ask for it, and all of a sudden it came in the mail? I call it a gift card. So what'd you do your gift card? You went to Home Depot, let's say,
Yeah.
and you bought a toilet, a golden throne, let's say, and you're walking out of the store, and the guy at the door says, wait a second, did you pay for that, Ryan? You say, I have a receipt. You didn't pay for that toilet, did you? No
No.
money came out of your pocket. No, but you have a receipt that shows it was paid. What would be the reason that Home Depot would let you walk out with your $500 toilet? They're going to be paid that night or the next day by who? Who is going to pay Home Depot?
The bank.
The bank, right. And where did the bank get the money? It's from their advertising budget. Advertising, same thing as buying a toilet, is the same thing as giving you that, or a wall clock, or inducing you to match their money. It's an inducement to get you to be a customer. Because what's so important about you being a customer? Look it up yourself. I did this 2 months ago. What's the average amount people pay on their credit card fees? $23.04. So if a bank has 1 million card members, they have $23 million a month coming in. And I figured it out, about 1/4 of their profits come from this illegal scheme. So the scheme is to get you to pay $23.04 on average a month for a free checking account. So you get your toilet, you're doing great, you're happy. In the mail comes a statement, right? And you think it's a bill. Well, think about this. When you have a normal checking account and you have a statement every month, is that a bill?
No.
No, it's not a bill. It shows what your beginning balance was, your deposits, the checks, the debits, and other fees that were taken out and stuff that had an ending balance. It's not a bill. It's tricked you into thinking that a bank issued alleged credit card statement is a bill. Because if you don't deposit money in there, they can charge you interest. What? On a free checking account? So you're a good person, you're a moral person, and you do the right thing by writing a $500 check out to Bank of America, let's say, and you have, let's say, the Bank of Ohio as your check. Now, think about this. Isn't that the first time Bank of America has ever seen your money? So slow down, think about it. An unsolicited credit card from Bank of America came in the mail. You went to Home Depot and you bought a toilet, but nothing money came out of your pocket. And at the end of the month, you got a statement. You thought it was a bill, so you wrote a check out from your checking account to Bank of Ohio and mailed it off to Bank of America. Isn't that the first time Bank of America ever received your money?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first time. Perfect. So banks are only about loans. And in the show notes, the very first link says that banks do not take deposits. This is a loan. Banks are only set up for loans. So if you go into a bank with no money, you hope to loan and come out with money. If you put money into a bank and leave it there, that's considered a loan to the bank. So you have loaned the bank money of $500. Now, every subsequent purchase has been with your own money. It was never a loan. They never fronted it for you. You deposited $500 into your free checking account. You don't get any checks, but you have a debit card disguised as a credit card. So the card that you're holding is at first is a debit card. That's the truth. It was given to you. Once you paid money to the bank, you deposit money. Now you loan the bank money, and now that is a debit card. So you have been using your own money for every purchase. That's why it's not an invoice and there is no loan. You don't owe them anything. So $1.3 trillion is loan. It's phony. It's a lie. It's what the banks want you to deposit in your free checking account. I don't want to deposit money this month. You don't have to. But with this scheme, they do because they get $23.04 for interest on a free checking account. Late fees, annual fees. One podcaster told me he pays $800 a year to have a credit card. That's for a free checking account. That's crazy.
Yeah. Seems like they're on the, it's a pretty big scam for them where they can make a high, get a high return on their investment.
1/4 of their money. Now think about this: $500. Why do they give it to you? 22 months at $23.04 comes out to about $500. So they've got you for about 22 months. You keep making this on average payment to them. They got their money back. And now you got the 10, 15, 20 years, sometimes paying 79.9% interest rate. I've seen that one time on one card was 79.9%. Other people, podcasters, other people showed me 104%. It's lunacy to pay that for a free checking account.
Yeah. So how would you go about fighting this
How did I go about finding this? Well,
or fighting
this
it?
happened to me. How did you find out? Once again, I couldn't hear it.
How did you go about fighting it to get
How did I go
away
about
from
finding it?
everything? Yeah.
Right. That's what I thought you said. So what happened is when I woke up with all that credit card debt, the 85,000, and I realized I didn't have that. What I did, I decided to file a federal lawsuit by myself. What? How'd you get that idea? Well, there's a guy on YouTube that talked about how easy it is to file federal lawsuits. The judges are so accommodating. They're so good to you. They know you're pro se, so they're really helpful. Well, no, not true at all. So I filed 3 federal lawsuits in Los Angeles. My father-in-law at the time was an attorney and a judge. And so he helped me and he explained about how fraud undoes all contracts. So with a little bit of help from him, I filed 3 federal lawsuits against the banks. Things were going along pretty good. And we were having discovery coming up. And that means the bank had to bring someone into my office to talk and to answer all my questions honestly and truthfully. And they had to bring documentation that there was an invoice, that there was a promissory note, and they had to have somebody swear out on a Bible that said that, and with penalty of perjury, that I had a debt, and they had proof of it. So that was set up. All of a sudden, I got called into court. And it was a bit of a drive, and parking's not easy right around the courthouse. So I got there with plenty of time. I sit down, my case is called, all 3, and the banks are not there. I'm the only one. He goes, Mr. Kilpatrick, do you have a credit card? I went, no. Let me start at the beginning. Oh, we'll start at the beginning later. Do you have a credit card? I went, well, it started off as a debit card. Debit card, pull your card out. He said, read to me what that says right there. credit card. You're an idiot. Get out of here. So being brainwashed, I got kicked out of court. So that's the way the system works. Okay. So that's where I then got my second depression of going, oh my God, here I'm going to get sued. And then a month later, I happened to look at my credit report and all three banks were gone off my credit report. How'd that happen? I don't know. But the banks must have talked to the judge saying, we don't have a case. And I don't know. You explain it to me. The cases were dismissed, but 30 days later, it was off my credit report. And actually, my credit score improved after this. So in 45 days, you can have this happen to you too. So what had happened is I think the banks were nervous about this deposition coming up. And they had to get a way out of it. They don't want this to be publicly known because I'm not a genius. I'm just an accountant who knows how to count and have a memory of the book, Modern Money Mechanics. So I can't figure out why this is not well known everywhere. And it must be a non-disclosure. People must be signing non-disclosures so they aren't talking about this because they don't want this to be known. They don't want this in court cases so that anybody could look it up and do the same thing. So how I help people get out of these things, because a friend of mine gave me a charity after this and it was dormant, and I turned it into a credit repair. Some of the people had credit card debt. So I would write a letter to the bank explaining the crime that they were committing. And in 45 days, their credit score improved. Now, some of the people that had 50, 100,000 or higher up, they would push back and with a lawsuit or something like that. So what we did, we had an expert witness, a CPA expert witness. So in my book, I explained what happened to me in front of the judge. I explained to you what happened, and many times to my CPA expert witness. And we won every single time because once the bank realized I had the goods on them, they didn't want to go forward. So they would settle before we walked into court. And then other times we did have to run through the joke. And that was obviously that they don't have an invoice. They don't have a promissory note. They don't have a debt. We don't have a contractual agreement. So all we want, Judge, is to have this off our credit report. And by that time, the attorney would, the bank would just say, here, you just sign this. And there's also sometimes a non-disclosure. So
That's amazing. So they just chose not to fight because they don't really have a case then.
they don't have a case. And if you stand up to them, so what you can do to resolve this whole thing is that you get to realize the truth. And the words are, you have a free checking account and you put money into that account. So the first thing you have to do is withdraw the money out of your account. You could also call that maxing out the card. See, if you use the terminology of the criminal, then it makes you sound like you've done something illegal and immoral. But this is your own money. So you need to withdraw that money first. So for the people that came into the clinic, my charity that I helped, about 1,000 of them over a 10-year period, I was able to find them money, their money that they withdrew, and they would give some of that to the charity. So our charity was very prosperous by finding people money and eliminating it off their credit report. That's all they wanted to do is improve their credit score. And that's how we did that, is these bank issued alleged credit cards are not true credit cards. It's a checking account that they report on. So all we do is ask them not to report. And they do because it's fraud. We tell them that they have done something fraudulent, which undoes all contracts. So in
Awesome.
your letter, what we would do is send a letter to the bank saying that this is fraudulent account. And what you can do then is boost it up a little bit by having your CPA write a letter saying there is no invoice. If you have one, send it, I'll pay it. And two, you could never have issued a loan because you're violating federal banking laws because you have to have a promissory note. My client never had a promissory note. Then if you'll make it even stronger, have your attorney write a letter to the bank saying, fraud undoes all contracts. There is no contractual agreement. And my CPA expert witness says that you never issued a loan. So it never happened. And then, what I really want to do, if you have a lot of power, in a sense of you think a lot of debt, you really want to make it strong, is make a federal, no, not a federal, but a state civil lawsuit. You don't file it. You just fill out the form as if it was. You just do everything that makes it look like a lawsuit. And the last thing is you have an injunction. Now people around the world know about injunctions. Anything Trump does, someone runs into a court and says, injunction, and they stop him cold. That's what I'm talking about. So when you send this to the bank, it's not even filed with the court. They know if they sue you, you're going to file an injunction. What that means is you're asking the judge to look at the promissory note and the invoice, and we're asking for an affidavit of debt. If the bank can't produce those three things to the judge in 30 days, they're in contempt of court. So the bank does not want that to happen. They're going to lose. So they're going to, all we want them to do is to click off your credit report, and in 45 days you have, but you better take your money out, because if you don't take your money out of your checking account, they're going to confiscate it. There's really no way you can get it back. So for most people, I find them a couple $1,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 on average. So it's pretty easy to have money in your pocket and that's off your credit report.
Interesting. So you went through a divorce around the same time too, right?
Yeah, about 12 years ago, the wife said, get out and take the dog with you. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me, I tell you. So I traveled, I took a vow of poverty and became homeless on purpose so I could feel what it was like. And so I traveled across the United States, mostly working on farms. I would give my labor up and then they would feed me and house me in exchange. And I ended up on a farm in Connecticut. And there I met a lady with a 2-year-old. So we got together and went up to Maine and had a farm up there for many years. And then shift happens. I never thought I was going to be off the farm. I thought I was going to die there. Just bury me in the back. I didn't care. I had 32 acres. We had 100 animals. Life was great. And then here I am on the outside. So I didn't have an ID. I didn't have anything. I was off grid. So I decided to come to the Philippines. And so I needed to buy an airline ticket. You have to do that with a credit card, right? And to book to rent a car to drive down to New Jersey to catch the flight to Los Angeles, I had to have a credit card. So I applied and they gave me, that's the important word, they gave me a $500 credit card. I have no score and no credit report. I was off grid for over 10 years. So I was off the radar screen. No one knew about me anywhere. So how did I get a $500 credit card from Capital One? Well, I was a good customer in the past. That was one of the banks I sued for $35,000. So they took it off my credit report. They must have had me as a good customer because they gave me a $500 credit card. I was able to book the airline flight. I paid that off. Yes, I know. It's my money. I know, but I never pay a penny. And so it's a free checking account to me because I know never to pay any interest, never to have late. But that gave me a credit score of 550. Then I went into a credit union and got a small little loan and have that paid off. That's an installment loan. So now my score jumped to about 625. And then over the last few months, I'm making payments and using the credit card. See, even got me to say it. The bank issued a alleged credit card by using that 10% every month and paying it off, never be late. I have my score is about 705. So I want to get to 800. So I want to show you what happened to me can happen to you.
Awesome. So what did that stage in life kind of teach you about yourself?
Yeah, a real humbling experience. I was always had money and I had never been poor. So to take a walk and leave all of my possessions, I left all my wealth and I had a backpack and I started walking with the dog. So we ended up all across the United States and the people were just so good and kind to me. It was unbelievable. So that's what I have discovered too. And so when I've been here in the Philippines, I went to a family home and it was in a poor neighborhood and they didn't have a plate. They didn't even have utensils. And so they're screwing around asking the neighbors if they have a plate or utensils. And I said, no, you don't need to do that. So they got the banana leaf out on a table, big leaf. They put the food on it and we ate it. And that's how you eat when you're poor, with your fingers. And so, and then I went to another home that was leaking the house and they apologized. I said, this is a beautiful home you have. I've been in places that didn't have a roof. So it's that kind of experience that I have that I can connect to people now and help them build a free house, have free food, and have free medical care. And that's what I'm all about is giving. And whatever I can do, I can do.
Awesome. Did this transition bring you happiness, peace, and joy?
Oh, yes. That happiness comes from doing things for other people without expecting a response. So that's what I have doing all the time is giving gifts to people. So I was walking to the pier quite frequently, and there'd be these ladies that were sweeping the street. And they're about like 70 years old, and they do this every single day, 6 days a week, sweeping the street of all the trash and garbage. It's wonderful what they do to make it nice and clean. So I would go and buy bread. It only like about 2 cents a piece. So I would buy 10 pieces and split it up and give them 2 bags of bread. And they were very appreciative of that. So that's what I do. I give gifts to people as I walk along, and I don't expect anything in response in return.
That's a pretty interesting thing that you do. Just like, so you just travel go from like family to family.
Yes, I had nobody here in the Philippines. And so there's a website called WWOOF. That's for Worldwide Opportunity Organic Farming. And what you do is they have farms all around the world that will invite you to come and stay with them free. And all you do is you spend your labor and you learn what they do, and you can teach what you know. So I contacted all the ones here in the Philippines, and I got a response back. First was one near Manila. I was scheduled to fly into Cebu, but I changed that to landing in Manila. So I was there for about a week in the Manila. It's a big city. I've been in New York, been in London, been in Madrid. I've been in all the major cities of the world. So it's no different to me. But I was there for about a week and living on about $25 a day, which was my room. And I had a hotel room with air conditioning. It was very nice, a nice neighborhood. I ate off the street, so life was good. And they give you 29 days for free time on your visa. After that, you pay. It could be $1 to $2 a day, depending on what happens with you. But your visa costs about $1 to $2 a day. So I can live on $100 on a farm. So the farm owner said, "Wait, don't come now because a typhoon was coming." And they hit the brunt of it. So about a week later, he picked me up from the hotel, took me to a farm, and I taught them how to build an 8-meter, a 25-foot dome house out of bamboo. It's free bamboo. And what I do is I teach them how to have a kit. So all they need to do is find out the customer needs a certain height or a certain width. That's all we need is one number. And a calculator online tells you how long the sticks have got to be. So they cut the bamboo to the right length, they drill a hole in it, and it comes to the job site, and it takes no tools to set this up. It's only zip ties. So I'm teaching them how to have their own business, and they can sell this bamboo, which is free to them, and a little bit of cost of zip ties, and you can have a dome put up by one person in about 4 hours. Now, 2 people, 2 hours, 4 people, less than an hour. So because we live here in the Philippines, we have earthquakes, we have typhoons, we have floods, we have all kinds of natural disasters. People don't think tomorrow. If they've got pesos today, they're happy today. But that's the problem, is that when a house gets washed away or destroyed, how do you build a house up, or how do you build a structure for free? And that's what the zip tie domes procedure. So that's what I'm here for, and that's what helps them out.
Awesome. You talk about having an abundance mindset and like living from a state of abundance. How would somebody go do that?
We're having a little bit of a glitch, so I don't hear the word you're saying.
Oh, sorry about that. So you talk about having an abundance mindset and to live with abundance. How would somebody go about doing that?
Yes, it's always looking at the glass. You can see it half full or it half empty. And I have always had the mentality since I was 7. I wanted some money. And so how do I figure out how to get some money? I made some cake and what I did is I set it up on Saturday morning in my garage. But customers would come, but they didn't have any money. So I'd say to my friends, "Go find me 3 paying customers and I'll give you a piece of cake." Well, that motivated them to go find their friends that had a few pennies to bring them and share them with me. So it started with that. And then when I was 13, became a scuba diver. And then at 14, I was playing in the pool, the dive shop's pool with a friend of mine. And a phone call came through from Los Angeles, by being Hollywood. They needed a couple of divers to be in this movie. So we were cast in a movie. Then we have a name. We were just kind of like extras and stuff. So we went to Catalina Island and passed a shark back and forth in a video screen. It was kind of fun with a video camera. And so in the 8th grade science class, we actually had the reel, and we could show our classmates, "Hey, that's me." And the other guy would say, "Oh, that's me over here." So you really couldn't tell because of the mask and stuff. But it was a lot of fun. And then at 15, I actually became a diver working in the port in the harbors, and I had my own motorcycle. So I had saved up the money to buy one, and I had a license to drive a motorcycle, but not a car. So I would drive legally to high school to learn how to drive a car. And then at 17, I graduated early, and my first job was an insurance investigator. And so I was 17. I lied. I told them I was 19. They had my driver's license. They knew I lied. They still hired me. So I became an insurance inspector at 17. Had my own apartment. I graduated in January of high school, and then by March or April, I had my own apartment and living pretty good. Then I looked at the guys that were there for the last 30 years going, do I really want to do this? So I said, hey, I'll just become rich by becoming a CPA. So that's decided to go to college, and all for the wrong reasons. So it was a good line. Yeah. So abundance has always been with me, and I always see it as that. So if we have a table full of food, I invite more people to eat all the food, because if we can stack this better, we can bring more food in. So I'm always has a mentality of making more food. So when I was a chef, I saw the amount of waste in the restaurants. So I've actually come up with some ideas on how to feed people for free and to become wealthy at the same time. So I call it the free revolution. So that's another book I'm working on right now, and to proving it that you can actually make money by giving food away for free.
Huh. Interesting. What is the best investment for someone looking to make money?
Real estate is the fastest way to wealth is through real estate, and you need to find someone who's motivated to sell. So if they say price, you can determine the terms. If they want term, you determine a price. So you need to find somebody who is motivated to get out of the situation. There's all kinds of people. You just have to look and wait, make your contacts out there. And you don't have to have any money. All you have to have is an idea. So if they accept your idea, great. If it doesn't work out, next. There's always somebody who's very desperate to get out of it. So my first purchase was $20,000, and back then it was a lot of money. But the lot was actually selling for 60. So how did I get a $60,000 lot for $20,000? The real estate agent was so incompetent they didn't even have a sign on the property. Back then in the 70s, that had a multiple listing book, and I went through this book page by page in the area I was looking for. So again, know your area, know your territory. And I found this lot for sale, and I drove out, looked at it, was perfect lot, but I saw no sign. And these people had been trying to sell it. They didn't live in the area. It was probably through like someone had passed away, and they had this house, this lot for sale in California. They didn't live in California, so they wanted to get rid of it. They just want the money. So I offered them 20,000. They went 20,000, but had been there for like a year and a half, but not a single offer because no one knew it was for sale. No one took the time to look up the multiple listing book. So they went, oh no, we'll do it for 30 and that. And I said, well, my offer still stands at 20, but I made it very complicated. I made it 3 loans and different interest rates and different payoffs. My agent didn't even understand. I said, you don't have to. So she submitted that, and the other side just threw their hands and said, okay, 20,000, you paid a closing cost. It was $750. So I was able to get a house, a lot that I eventually sold for about 200,000 for only 20. So again, buy low, sell high. The next house was in Maine. The next lot was in Maine. That I had a deal. It was 29,000 they wanted. So I offered them. I said, what if someone offered you 12? What would you say? Thinking that's a joke. We would never take. Well, they countered with 19. I said, what if we did it at 13? And then they would say about 18. And then I said, then the father got so upset. He said, 14,000 cash. I said, okay. So I got it appraised at 20,000. So it's an instant $6,000 equity. So real estate is the fastest, easiest way to become wealthy. And that's what you do. You don't go in for the money. You're trying to help someone else. So look for the bunnies, as the guy from Pace Morby says, is look for the bunnies. How can I help you? That's what I do. How can I make your life better? Get this property off my shoulders. Okay, I can do that. I can figure out something. How do we work this out? So through that, you help them solve their problem. They're going to help you. So if they don't, move on. We're the next one. So that's the best way out of poverty is through real estate.
Awesome. What are your short-term and long-term goals?
The short term is to finish this other book. I have learned how to speak Hiligaynon, which is the 3rd most popular language here in the Philippines. And why the 3rd, when I learned Tagalog, is that my fiance speaks Hiligaynon. I live in an area of Hiligaynon, so I thought about it. Why is it so difficult to learn a language? And I just stopped and thought about it. And I said, there's got to be an easier way. And I have come up with an easier way. And it's the book I've written on how to speak a language in 30 days. And it's what words you want to learn. You don't go to school. You don't crack open a book. You don't learn grammar. You don't learn syntax. It's what is important to you. And to me, eating is important to me. I'm a vegetarian. So no isda, no carne. And actually the word is Indi here and Dili in another language in Visaya. So I've learned several languages here. So I learned what I want. I can go to the fruit market. I can go to the frutas, and I can go to get some veggies, which is utan, and I can name all of the vegetables. I know all the fruit names, and I know how to pay. I get on the bus. I can ask how much does it cost to get to here, and pass the money. That's what we do here in the Philippines. We pass the money, and then let me off, lugar. So let me off. So I can travel, and I feel great, and people love it. I'm telling you, by speaking their language, it astounds them. I went up to a peanut guy. It's called mani. It's not like money, but it's mani. And so I pointed to the peanuts I wanted because they're different kind of flavors. And so then I said, my own hapon, which means good afternoon. And he was stunned. And then I said, let me say, what did I say? How much is it? And he said 20 pesos. And I said, how are you? ¿Cómo está? Which is a little bit of Spanish. So there's a little bit of Spanish mixed in. And he was like flabbergasted. He looked back to his friend who was laughing and he's going, what's going on here? A white guy is speaking my language. I don't think anybody has ever spoken his language. I never said any English. And I paid him. And then I said, Wala saying Anaman, which means you're welcome. So he said, thank you in English. But I came back in Hiligaynon saying, you're welcome. So I hear him laughing behind me. And that just brings joy to me when I help other people. They make me laugh. So what can I do? Make them laugh.
Yeah. How can people get a hold of you?
Simple enough. Tommy A. Kilpatrick is on Facebook. You can reach me there. Just send a message to me. In the show notes, it'll be there and a link and also my email. So I offer a free 15-minute consultation. And if you do that, I'll give you my $69 book for free. So I really want you to go up against the banks. I want everybody around the world to close their free checking account and be done with this bank-issued alleged credit card debt. So my favorite client would be a business, a company who's looking at bankruptcy, and they could make it if they didn't have this debt. So by talking to me and have their board of directors are all maxed out, the company's got $200,000 of bank issued alleged corporate credit card debt and employees. So the CPA gets everybody together and says, look, we have been defrauded. There is no bank loan. There is no invoice. So we don't owe this money. And we're going to file this lawsuit, but not really file it. And we're going to put our names on it. And if you want to, put your name on it too, but you better take your money out first. And then we're going to send this off to the bank. And we expect in 45 days to be click, 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 click off our credit report. And that's where the attorney gets up and says, fraud undoes all contracts, because he's usually the vice president. And so he'll say, legally, they don't have a contract with at all. And so the CFO here, the CPA says, we can do this. So I'm signing on to it too. So, and funny enough, I can find them lots and lots of their own money, but still in their checking account. So that would be something that I would really be tickled pink about. My long-term goal would be to help the company be able to stay in business by being not a victim anymore. These people, all you people are victims of a fraud put on by the bank.
Awesome. Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
I think a mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. So all I ask you to do is open your mind up, have a possibility of saying alleged, start with that. You've been lied to, you've been indoctrinated, and we've all been brainwashed. But once you start asking about what is this? Is this true? Now the brainwashing has stopped. Now we just have years and years of indoctrination. So find out what the truth is and what the lies are and use the truthful words instead of the criminal's words.
Final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
Faith. And faith is belief without evidence. So I would say if you have a belief that there's something bigger and more important than you, then you have to follow that, because I walked out with nothing. And I'm doing pretty good. So if I have total trust and faith in God, that God provides everything I need, I don't have a want, I don't have a need. I do what God wants me to do, and that's all I'm doing. So that's my best advice, is to have a higher power, and it's what makes work for me. So yeah.
Great advice. Well, Tommy, thank you for coming on and sharing your insight and wisdom with us.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Hey, not a problem. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.